Thank you. I'm sorry? That was the rebuttal. All right, thank you. All right, back to the schools. Now we're working and helping each other here. This is good. Why is the school board mixed on this issue? Shouldn't there be a unanimous agreement from the school board before moving forward to the taxpayers? Yes, sir.
Yeah, you need to understand kind of the theory of what this school board is. But to be honest, I've always felt for 18 years, my opinion really didn't count, my personal opinion on issues. In this particular issue, the issue was, should the community be given a chance to go ahead and vote on this issue when there's clearly a lot of evidence that, and I thought there was this kind of burden of proof that the administration had presented to us, that there was a significant possibility we would have short funding and have to make significant alterations to the quality of our education. I constantly don't know why it wasn't unanimous, other than it seems to me that there was someone, for some reason, the two individuals that did not like to go forward and allow the community to vote, felt for some reason the community shouldn't put this to vote. They shouldn't have an input on what I believe is a very critical issue. So why it wasn't unanimous, I can't answer that question. I suspect it may be a different perspective on what's the ability of the community and what their participation would be. I think three of us felt that this was clearly an issue that the community needed to weigh in on.
If there's any time left.
Yes, sir.
Just a few seconds. I voted for the referendum, and as Rob said, it was simply to put the question to the community. Mr. Craig is who I have served on the board with all 12 years that I was on, and I disagreed about it. We actually had some conversations about our different positions, and maybe enlightening. My understanding of his opposition was that he was basing it on principle, and my argument with him was, let's wait and get some facts before we decide to vote yes or no. This was prior to the initial financial information. Chip, you may want to enlighten us as to why. You're welcome.
As Mark said, I almost always agree with them. I'm used to sitting over there with them. This is the first time I've sat in front of a group in just a few months, but it seems like it's been years. About to cry over my skin. But it was principle. And that principle, they both believe that it was up to us to allow the community to vote. Well, if it's up to us to allow the community to vote, then the legislature would have negated our portion of it altogether. In my mind, we were voting for or against the referendum. And so I voted against it. I voted against it. I had voted against it twice. Originally, the board voted on whether or not to spend $10,000 to investigate the referendum. I voted against that. It also passed. We never spent that money, from what I understand. But I voted against it then when it came up for us, whether or not we should approve the referendum. I voted against it. Not to keep it away from the voters in the community, but because that was our duty to vote for it or against it. On principle, I feel that there isn't a government agency that can't do with less money. I think all government agencies could trim down. Rob mentioned the reason for the revenue shortfall is declining revenues in the state and increased expenses. Well, it's not because the state's making less money, it's because we're making less money. All of us are making less money. I know I had less money than I had a couple years ago. I know several people who have lost jobs in the community and not blue-collar jobs. People that live in Thornhill and some of those other issues that come to mind to me. Times are tough. You want me to shut up?
You said time, and I thought, okay, time.
Teamwork needs to be next to me.
Well, Valerie's not going to do that, I don't think. All right, you can use the time here if you'd like for your next question because it is posed to you. Question is sort of foundational here. What kinds of checks and balances are in the budgeting process as you understand them?
Do you have anything to say? Well, in the budgeting process, is that the question? You know, the budgeting process is a nightmare. I've learned more about school budgeting in the last few months than I've ever been. Mike referred, for instance, to the GLF budget that was submitted. It's submitted at millions of dollars more than we expect to receive and expect the DLGF to cut down. So when you see that 285-page book, it's because there's apparently just an abundance of information that they have to provide, knowing that they're not going to get several $1 million. That's one of the problems we had in going through it and why we sat down with them, is because we didn't understand what all the different numbers meant. But we finally landed on some pages where it was what we were told was the actual operating budget for those 2 years. So as far as checks and balances, I think the checks and balances, I would hope, is that Mike, the school administration, puts the budget together and the board goes through it with a fine-tooth comb and establishes whether it's the budget they want. To be honest with you, I don't know how they separate the fluff in it from the reality, but that's my best position. And I've only been doing this for a couple of months, but the checks and balances have to be sitting right over there.
Can I add something?
Yes, you have time.
You know, just as a citizen, I think actually it's not mandated checks and balances, but a really good one is that you have some just citizens with fantastic education and work experience that they care enough that they want to go through it. It's like, you know, I was thinking about it, really, it puts my mind at rest. It's an independent audit. I kind of look at it that way. So I think that's another really good check and balances.
Well, for those of you who are interested in the actual answer to that, there's a 6-page narrative in the budget itself, which explains in detail exactly what those checks and balances are. Quite briefly, there is a process that is followed at the local level. Before the budget goes to the board themselves has a public hearing with a testimony from the public. That public hearing is followed up 2 weeks later by an adoption meeting, at which point the board again often hears testimony or comments from the public, and then votes to adopt the budget that goes to the DLGF. At that time, the DLGF has their own process, which includes a field hearing and intensive review, a lot of number crunching. Once we sit into that, it normally takes about 3 or 4 months before they finally give us a verdict on it. So there are a number of checks and balances built into the process. Most of those are statutory and can be found in the Indiana Code, and all of them are followed by school procedure.
All right, thank you very much. The next question I will pose to the schools, and this sort of is another fundamental budgeting question, but what percentage of administration costs go to administrative salaries, retirement, perks, including everything for administration only?
It does vary a bit from year to year, but the most current figures we have indicate about 7%.
You might define what administrators are, but it's not just you two sitting here. What is in the category of administration? And also comment on the fact that, you know, the district is up several hundred students, we actually got nearly 40% less administrators than we did, what, 4 years ago?
Yeah, the central office administration has been cut by 39.5% since 2006. We've added approximately 900 students in that time. Our administrative spend has continued to decline because of the attrition of administrators and our use of that as a irresponsible way to ensure that we're driving as many knowledge as possible in the classroom.
And one other comment, that these two individuals or anybody else that can speak for the administrations had a raise in 2.5 years, so.
Thank you. Is that something you'd like to rebut?
I was reading earlier, talking about cost of efforts, we applaud the school, those efforts.